Hello, YouTube. I am back with 5 things to talk about, 5 wonderful things to talk about. And I'm wearing my current fall hockey jersey right now. This is our newest jersey that we got, long sleeve for the winter season because it's cold as fuck in that arena. So next time you'll be seeing the short sleeve spring, summer, fall version of this jersey. But as you can see, Friday Night Tokes, it's got a lion smoking a big blunt on it. Our team has a lot of fun, but I digress. First up, a book called Aliens versus Predator, that was the last one. Ultimate Prey. This isn't a straight up novel. This is a collection of 15 short stories done by all sorts of authors, like many of them I recognize from other science fiction series that they've done books on, especially Star Wars, like Delilah S. Dawson. I know she's done some Star Wars stuff. Maybe I don't know as many of them as I thought I did, but there are some that I recognize in there. So I didn't realize when I bought this it was a collection of short stories, so that was a bit of a surprise to me. Not that I mind that. I do like collections of short stories. But this one, every single story involves both the xenomorphs and the Yautja, the predators. And these authors all take really cool runs at creating a story with these two aliens in these different types of settings. Four of my favorite stories come right off the hop, the first 4 in a row. A couple of them take place in more olden times. Like one takes place in the late 1700s when some Spanish guy that was on a sailing ship, some expedition, that he gets their ship gets wrecked and he's stranded on the island. He's the only survivor, and he witnesses he's in hiding because he sees these xenomorphs everywhere, and he's like, fuck, these guys are crazy. And then the Yautja are there and fighting them from time to time, and he's like, I'm just staying hidden and waiting for rescue. And then finally a rescue ship does come, not to rescue him, but just because they show up at this island, and he tries to get off the island, but of course all hell breaks loose. Another one takes place after that, probably like in pioneer times or something like that, on like some homestead in the Midwest or something like that, and a wife that's been left on the homestead alone while her husband goes into town for a few days to get some stuff, and she gets caught up in the middle of a xenomorph invasion, but the Yautja are there to fight them, and well, it's an interesting story, and let's just say it doesn't end well for her or for anybody that gets involved in the action. My 2 favorite, though, are the first and the fourth of those first 4 stories. The first one is these 2 people that are involved in like this big, massive raid on Area 51 to try and sneak in. And these 2 split off from the main group because this guy has information on how to actually get into Area 51, and they do so. But as they descend to its depths, they get a little more than they bargained for. Let's just say the xenomorphs and the Yautja are all down there, and it gets nasty. That one was really cool. I really like how they introduced Area 51 into it, because there's two of the most iconic alien species we've seen in film, and now they're putting them inside Area 51, which is kind of a cool little twist. And then the fourth story, this one is really neat. It takes place, it's like 3 friends that have their own TV show, kind of a reality show where they explore myths all around the world of ghostly activity. So they go to this Hotel Mariposa, which I think is like in Vegas or somewhere in that area. The Rat Pack used to stay there. This isn't for real. This is just a made-up thing. But the Rat Pack used to stay there. It was a very famous, lavish hotel. But ghost stories emerged from it. People getting lost in its corridors for endless amounts of time, seeing ghosts, hearing voices, all this kind of thing. So these guys, their show's starting to lose interest. So they go to this Hotel Mariposa as a last-ditch effort to try and bang out a really cool show and recapture their audience. But what has happened is it's a Yautja spacecraft crash landed there years and years ago, and the drive on the ship is causing all these distortions in reality, and that's why people go there and they have all these weird experiences. because that ship is fucking with, you know, the fabric of reality sort of thing. So they not long into their stay there, things start going weird, and then of course an alien shows up, and then a predator shows up, and yeah, lots of people die. Yeah, the usual formula. And so then there's many more stories, and the book ends with two really cool ones for specific reasons. One of them, there's an alien book called Phalanx, which I read probably last year or something. It takes place on a world where there's no technology really. It's a very primitive world where the warriors use spears and shields. They don't have guns and stuff like that, and they have to fend off xenomorphs using these primitive weapons and these what do they call them? Heidi suits, I think, that are made of these specific leaves that grow on trees there that resist the alien blood, the acid blood. So very primitive way of going about life and fighting off the aliens. So it's years after the Phalanx book. They've had many wars against the Northerners. They haven't seen any aliens since, but suddenly they're getting alien activity and they're like, oh, there's another hive. Let's go find the queen. But then, of course, a predator gets involved in their action, and they have to kind of, in tandem with this Yautja, take down another alien queen and rid their world of another xenomorph infestation. And then the last story in the book is set in the Predators movie with Adrian Brody, and I forget, Topher Grace is in that movie, and there's some others as well. It takes place after the Predators movie on that same planet with people being captured and used as kind of hunting prey for the Predators and their little xenomorph pets that they have, which kind of cool that they revisited that whole scenario. So very good book. Loved all 15 stories. Oh, excuse me. But those first 4 and those last 2 were my favorite by far. But all the rest were really good as well. Next up, I finished watching some Netflix shows, or sorry, one Netflix show, or actually one season of one Netflix show recently. Something that I was really pumped about. I watched the first season back when I was still living at the old house before the separation, and I was very much looking forward to the second season of this show coming out. But then with all the chaos of moving and being on strike and separating and everything, I kind of forgot about it until I got into Netflix in preparation for wrestling to be switched over and started exploring that. And then I was like, oh, fucking right, I can watch the second season of this show. And the show in question is Jurassic World Chaos Theory. If you love Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, all those movies, but, excuse me, I'm so tired, but haven't watched these shows yet, you got to begin with, there's 2 series. The first one that introduces these characters is Camp Cretaceous, and I forget how many seasons there were of that, but there's a fair amount of episodes, and then it transitions after they get a little bit older into Chaos Theory, which is still going on. I think there's supposed to be a 3rd season coming out at some point. So, first of all, the Alien book, the AVP Ultimate Prey book was from 2022, so it's fairly recent. But Chaos Theory, the second season, actually both seasons are from 2024. So as the second season picks up, 5 of the Nublar 6, including Darius, Ben, Kenji, Yaz, and Sammy, are hiding on that big container ship where they're going on this adventure to try and find the identity of this broker person who keeps smuggling these dinosaurs and doing nasty things with them. So they still presume Brooklyn is dead. So they're hiding on this ship, but then during a storm, they kind of get discovered, but the storm messes with the ship's electronics, and the ship is running a skeleton crew at this point, and a couple of one Majungasaurus gets out because it kills the other one and starts stalking the everybody on the ship. So a whole bunch of action ensues, and eventually the Nublar 5 at this point are able to escape. I'm so tired. On a life boat and escape from the people on the ship, as well as the dinosaurs, because the people on the ship are working for the broker, and they obviously know of the Nublar Six and want to take them down because they're causing a whole bunch of chaos for these people, right? So they're on this rescue or this lifeboat for a little while before they finally wash up on the shores, and they don't know where they are. They stumble upon this plantation, this rice plantation with these little huts and houses, and see dinosaurs there. And they're like, A, where are we? And B, why are there dinosaurs here? Because they thought that the dinosaurs were only in North America. They hadn't spread across the world yet. They were wrong. So they find out from this young girl and her mother that they are in Senegal. So they're in Africa, and they see a gallimimus that is kind of friendly with this family, and kind of they take care of it. And there's also some stegosauruses in there that are close to the house, and so the Nublar 5 are like shooing the stegosauruses away, like they're going to ruin their house, we got to get them out of here. But the family knows of the stegosauruses, and the stegosaurs actually keep the more violent dinosaurs away. So they're kind of working in tandem sort of thing. So the Nublar 5 chase the stegosaurs away, but then that invites the bad dinosaur. So all this chaos erupts. And then after the dust has settled, the Nublar 5 are talking with these people and figuring out just what's going on. And they're like, we don't know. The dinosaurs just showed up one day, but my daughter loves this gallimimus. I forget his name. And the stegosaurs help protect us. And, if you want to find out what's going on, please go ahead. So the Nublar 5, along with this girl's daughter, head upriver to try and find out what's going on. But of course, during the trip, they have all these run-ins with other dinosaurs, with other animals. There's a hippopotamus in there, and as they make their way upriver to find out, just where these dinosaurs are coming from. In the meantime, Ben has been on his phone watching videos from a group on the Dark Jurassic website from this group. I forget what they're called, but the Dinosaur Liberation Front or something like that. They're a group concerned with the welfare of dinosaurs and letting them live in peace along with humans, and kind of taking to task any groups that are trying to subjugate dinosaurs. And during one of these videos, Ben, in the very background of the video, in a very dark corner, he thinks he sees Brooklyn's face. So suddenly he's like, oh, Brooklyn's alive, but he doesn't tell anybody because he wants to make sure first, and he can't believe it. So he's got that hanging over his head. And now while all this is going on, we also see the story from Brooklyn's side. After they think she was killed by the blind or the one-eyed Allosaurus or whatever the fuck that dinosaur was, and they presumed her to be dead, they kind of backtrack in bits and pieces as to exactly how that whole scenario unfolded and what happened afterwards, who rescued her, who healed her up after she lost her arm to the dinosaur. And eventually she falls in with the broker and is trying to work against her from the inside. And eventually, after Ben kind of contacts her or whatever, like she says, no, don't, like, well, they run into, well, sorry, no, that doesn't happen yet. So we kind of see this story from Brooklyn's side. Well, the rest of the Nublar 6, the Nublar 5 are making their way upriver. And finally they come to this chicken farm that has kind of some weird setups going on. They're like, okay, what's going on here? So they find two, I forget what kind of dinosaurs they are. They're not Protoceratops. I thought they were. No, not Protoceratops. What the hell were they? Anyways, they weren't the ones I was thinking of, but they were trying to eat them, but they were kind of bound on leashes, so they couldn't escape. But eventually they do when they try to get at these kids hard enough. So the kids are all scrambling and whatever, and they make their way inside some doors, and they find themselves in this facility underground that they had no idea existed beneath this chicken farm. So it's obviously a front for this whatever's going on in this facility. So as they make their way through it, they find out this is like where one of the brokers' headquarters, and they are working on cloning dinosaurs. And as the Nublar 5 start out exploring this facility, Brooklyn and the broker, who her last name is Santos, and she has this dinosaur that she can control with this little clicker, always following her around. So she uses it to kind of keep Brooklyn in line, because she doesn't quite trust Brooklyn being part of the Nublar 6, who is like Santos's biggest enemy. And she also uses it to kill the captain of the ship who fucked everything up, blah blah blah. So she's a savage. So the end of this second season culminates inside this facility when Ben meets up with Brooklyn by accident. He's like, "You are alive. I saw you in that video." And Kenji is seeing it. He's in this other room where there's two-sided glass, and he's watching this interaction, and he's pissed because Ben knew Brooklyn was alive and didn't tell him, but he's also amazed that Brooklyn is alive. So there's all this stuff going on, and eventually Brooklyn helps the kids escape from. There's a mad scientist working for Santos who's doing all these he's cloning dinosaurs and he's doing all these genetic modifications. He's made a blind, I think it's a baryonyx, and he says, yeah, with it being blind, all of its other senses are super heightened. To watch him go. And the kids almost get eaten by this stuff, but they're saved by Brooklyn, who manipulates some equipment to get them out of there. And eventually Santos turns on the scientist, and they have a falling out, and she throws him into the pit with the baryonyx. She thinks he gets eaten, but he actually has control over the baryonyx. So he escapes and then comes head to head with her. So it's all these twists and turns in this kind of final sequence in the season inside this facility. And in the end, the kids all escape and they're chasing Santos in Brooklyn. But they catch up to them at Santos's like private jet after she blows up the facility, so there can be no proof of her involvement with what was going on there. And Brooklyn basically tells the Nublar 5 to fuck off and gets on the plane with Santos. I forget where they're going. And, the five of them are kind of heartbroken that Brooklyn, after discovering she is alive and they want her back because she's one of their best friends, she kind of double crosses them and goes with Santos. But of course, it's all a front because she wants to bring Santos down and expose the truth, sort of thing. So very exciting season. Only 10 episodes. That's the thing I don't like about TV shows these days, is like some of the Star Wars shows, like The Mandalorian or Ahsoka or Skeleton Crew, whatever, like they might be anywhere from 6 to 10 episodes, maybe 12 if you're lucky. Like the seasons are so short now. Whereas when back in the day in the 80s and 90s, like when you had a sitcom, like a standard season was like 22 episodes. Sometimes it would be even more, right? So it seems like you're getting not as much quantity with TV shows these days. So I went through that second season in like a flash. And when I reached the 10th episode and it was over, I was like, okay, let's get on to the next one and see what happens. I was like, oh, it's over. I guess I wait for season 3 now, right? So, but awesome show. I love it. I loved I loved Camp Cretaceous, and I love Chaos Theory, and I cannot wait for season 3. Now, next up, a movie. And I've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. I wanted to see it in the theater, but again, with how crazy my life was there, with everything that was going on, I wasn't able to get out and see it. But when I was sick last week with my bleeding ear and the ear infection and the burst membrane and all that, the one day I did take off work to go to the clinic and get it looked at and get my medicine. I just came home afterwards and just plunked myself on the couch with a bag of chips and watched a movie, and just basically enjoyed my day. And the movie I watched is Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Was so looking forward to watching this movie because the original Beetlejuice movie is one as a kid that when it played on TV, I taped it onto a VHS tape and just watched it relentlessly. As a Tim Burton movie, the effects, the comedy, just the vibe and the scenery and just the mood that he puts down in all of his movies. You can always tell a Tim Burton movie because they have just such a unique everything to it. Beetlejuice just blew me away with all the effects and the weird creatures and just everything. I was just amazed by it. And it was kind of spooky, but also so funny and weird. And I just loved it. So I didn't know they were planning a Beetlejuice sequel. I guess they were planning one years and years and years ago, but it just never happened. So when this finally came out, Beetlejuice was 1988. So we got 98, 08, 18, 36 years later. 36 fucking years later, Beetlejuice 2 finally comes out. And let me tell you, I read very mixed reviews on it, but I take reviews worth a grain of salt. People are stupid these days. They expect the moon from everything, and they think they can do better. Well, go do better then, right? But after watching Beetlejuice, I was blown away. It was such a cool story, such a cool sequel all these years later. And so basically, it takes place in the same time. So Beetlejuice happened in 1988. That was 1988. This happens 3 decades later. So if the timelines are in the years they were made, sort of thing. So all those years later, Lydia is now she has a TV, or like a reality TV show called Ghost House, where she goes around and sees ghosts and helps people with their ghost problem, and then does a show on it, sort of thing. She has fallen out of favor with her daughter Astrid, who's played by Jenna Ortega. Astrid doesn't like her mom's. Her TV show has taken over her life. Her mom doesn't want to spend any time with her, and she's kind of weird to begin with the way she dresses, and she sees ghosts and stuff. So all the kids tease her. So she's sick of her mom, especially since her father Richard died on a trip to the Amazon, I think it was. So like her father was kind of the bridge between them, even though her parents were separated. Without her father, she's felt kind of, I don't know, lost or whatever, and angry, of course. So Lydia's doing her show, dealing with not being loved by Astrid, but while doing her show one day, she thinks she sees Beetlejuice in the crowd, and she gets all flustered, and her boyfriend Rory is like, oh, what's going on, blah blah blah, and he's a real piece of work, let me tell you. In the meantime, Delia, Lydia's mom, played by Catherine O'Hara. So Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, Michael Keaton were all back for this movie. She gets in touch with Lydia and says, come here, there's an emergency. So she comes to Delia's big art museum exhibit and is like, what's wrong? He's like, your father's dead. He was on a trip to somewhere, I can't remember where, and the plane crashed. He was going on a bird watching trip. And he was eaten by a shark. So they're like, oh, so they go back to Connecticut and pick up Astrid to go for the funeral and clean out the old house, the old Beetlejuice house after his death, sort of thing. So while they're there, Astrid goes out on a bike ride and crashes in this yard and meets this boy named Jeremy in a treehouse, and instantly they hit it off, and she's kind of smitten with this guy. She starts spending more time with him in between going back to the house and stuff, where she sees Lydia and Rory. He proposes to her and she reluctantly says yes, and Astrid is disgusted. Delia is also disgusted. She hates Rory. And so on Halloween night, they're planning, I can't remember what they're planning. They have to do something, but Astrid is like, well, I want to go hang out with Jeremy. We're having pizza and whatever. And so Lydia's like, okay, I'll take you there, but you got to be home by 10. So she drops him off, and turns out Jeremy's actually a ghost. So Astrid, much like her mother, can see ghosts, and she's kind of appalled by this. But Jeremy's like, well, I want to hang out with you, and you know what? You can bring me back to life if you go to the underworld with me and help me out. And while you're there, you could probably see your father too. So that's the kicker. That's what does it. So she goes with him to the underworld, which is some sort of chant he has to recite, and or she has to recite to allow a living being into the underworld. So, but basically this guy's actually a fiend, and Lydia finds this out when she talks to, remember that there's the real estate lady in the original Beetlejuice, she's in this one as well. And so Lydia mentions, oh, Astrid's hanging out with this kid on whatever street. Oh, what kid? At what house? Oh no. She said, that's the murder house. And she said, what's the kid's name? Oh, his name's Jeremy. It can't be Jeremy. He died 24 years ago after killing his parents, sort of thing. So Lydia's like, the fuck? So then she takes off to Jeremy's house and is just a hair too late after they disappear into the underworld through the wall. So she goes back home and does the thing she's dreading having to do. She summons Beetlejuice. The juice is loose, right? So Beetlejuice only promises to help Lydia if she promises to marry him. And so she's like, fine, because that was his goal in the first movie, right? And so they head to the underworld, but she's unauthorized. So Beetlejuice is kind of there's this guy Wolf, I can't remember his last name, played by Willem Dafoe, who was an actor before he died, and he's kind of become the underworld cop sort of thing. So he's already been talking to Beetlejuice, because the other aspect of this story is that Beetlejuice used to be married to a woman named Dolores years and years and years ago. And she's actually a soul sucker. And she married him to use him as a puppet in some sort of ritual. But he was able to turn the tables on her and kill her before she could suck his soul. But she has been revitalized. She is sucking souls right, left, and center, and she's coming after the juice. So Wolf is on the prowl for Beetlejuice now that he's brought this unauthorized living person into the underworld. Dolores is after Beetlejuice. Lydia and Beetlejuice are after Jeremy. So there's all these people kind of chasing each other through the underworld. And in the meantime, Delia is performing some sort of ceremony for Charles after he died as kind of a remembrance thing. And she's sent away for these two snakes, two asps, which were supposed to have been defanged and depoisoned sort of thing and safe to use, but they weren't, and they both bite her in the neck. So now she's dead, and she's going to the underworld. So she shows up, and she wants to find Charles, her dead husband. And so she summons Beetlejuice to try and find Charles. So that's more people added to this whole underworld chase. And so basically it all ends up after they escape the underworld. They end up in the church where Rory and Lydia are supposed to get married. But is it Beetlejuice or somebody? Yeah, I think it's Beetlejuice he shows up and crashes the wedding, puts a truth serum on Rory, and Rory admits to only wanting to marry Lydia for the money. So they send him packing when Dolores shows up, and Beetlejuice summons a sandworm to gobble the both of them up. So then he's like, "Are you ready to get married, babe?" But then Wolf shows up and shuts the whole thing down, sort of thing. So, and in the end, the people that are dead get taken back to the underworld, and Lydia and Astrid are left to kind of live their lives, I guess. So this was such a neat story. So many moving parts and all the characters. It was almost like an episode of Scooby-Doo. You know, when Scooby and Shaggy come out of this one door and the monster chases them through it, and then they come out the door down here, monster comes out this door down here, and then suddenly Scooby and Shaggy are chasing the monster. It's like one of those when everybody's kind of moving down in the underworld sort of thing. Really cool story. Lots of effects. Like, they used the same type of effects as they used in the first movie. Just such cool looking thing. And remember the shrunken head guy from the first movie? Beetlejuice works in the underworld as an afterlife call center guy, and he has a team of those shrunken head guys that are his workers in the office. So they're so funny. And then to try and throw Dolores off the scent of catching Beetlejuice, he dresses his favorite shrunken head guy, Bob, up as Beetlejuice as a decoy. And Beetlejuice is like, "Oh, she's just gonna suck your soul out if she finds you," whatever. And Bob's like, "What the fuck?" All right, so many cool effects, so much fun. And the other part that was kind of funny about it is Charles, the husband of Delia, was played by Jeffrey Jones. And he's still alive, but they didn't use him at all in the movie. I think he had some sex things going on. So I don't think he's one of those guys that's kind of been canceled in Hollywood. So they used him in the movie, but they found all these weird ways. Like when he reaches the underworld after being eaten by the shark, they have the whole top of his body like bitten off. So he has no head, and there's this big depression in his collarbone. So you see his aorta sticking out the top, spurting blood all the time. And so they use him live action like that. And then when Delia is telling Lydia the story of how he died by being eaten by a shark, they use this really weird type of animation. It's almost like animated claymation or something. So you see it looks like him, but it's not actually him. It's an animated thing, right? So they found these clever ways to include him in the movie without actually including him. So overall, I just really love the movie. And I mean, it would make sense, you know, you say Beetlejuice 3 times to summon him, so shouldn't there be a third movie? Maybe? Throwing it out there, maybe that's the plan, I don't know. But if they're making one, I'm on board, I'm watching it hands down. And this time I'll go to the fucking theater, unless I meet a new woman in the meantime, and then get separated from her around the time that movie's released, right? No thank you. Last up, we have a couple video games. And this first one is a game I was waiting on for quite a while. There was a handful of like retro themed new games coming up that I was so excited about. This was probably the one I was looking forward to the second most of these games, and it was fantastic. And it is called the Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. So this game obviously was a 2024 release, and it was so much fun. It's a side-scrolling, pixelated, Super Nintendo-looking kind of beat 'em up, featuring the original Power Rangers cast, which I love Kimberly from the original Power Rangers, the Pink Ranger. Oh my God, she was quite a crush for me back in the day, and well, I guess it still is. I painted a picture of her. It's hanging on my wall, but. This game, so it's called Rita's Rewind because well, actually, I think it takes place like in 2023, and there's basically Rita Repulsa she's a robot now. She's evolved or whatever, or changed herself into a robot. So she goes back in time to talk to original Rita and join forces and say, this is how you get things done. Boom. And they're working together. So the Power Rangers back then need to like basically face two Ritas and all the enemies they're throwing their way, and try and end this threat that this double Rita team kind of presents. So there's 15, I think there was 15 total levels, and there's a map of Angel Grove where you pick the levels from. So you go all across, you do all these different areas, and most of the levels are side-scrolling beat 'em up type levels. You can pick any of the 5 Rangers to play with. Eventually, Tommy the Green Ranger becomes available, and you can use him. So in the end, you have 6 people you can use. And yeah, you just pick your Ranger, and then you side scroll, beat up all the idiots, all the what do they call them? The clay guys. And get to the end of the level. Usually, there's a boss at the end of the level. And the cool thing about this game, though, well, there's many cool things, is that every once in a while, you're given a vehicle level. So the vehicle levels run to the bottom of the screen to the top. So you're always moving forward, and you need to either destroy a boss or just destroy all the enemies. And whichever Ranger you pick, you're going to use their piece of equipment. So if you choose Jason, you're using the big red Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? If you choose Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, you're using the pterodactyl sort of thing, right? And if it's a motorbike level, they're I forget what they're called. They're the motorcycles that the Rangers use. You use that Ranger's motorcycle sort of thing. So, and then usually when you get to the end of that vehicle level, it ends with a Megazord boss fight. So the Rangers form the Megazord, and then you kind of look at your enemy, whether it's Goldar or whoever. You're looking at him through kind of the cockpit of the Megazord, and you can see all 5 Rangers sitting there. And when you take a hit, like everything flashes, and they all are like, ah, you know, how they used to like be over dramatic with all their movements and stuff. It is such a cool game. I had so much fun. And as you go through the game, you can collect secrets that get added to your stash that you can view in the, I forget the name of the place, but the main hub of the game is that juice bar that the Rangers always hung out with. And Bulk and Skull, or whatever his name is, they show up, and you talk to them. You can talk to a few other characters in the establishment that you rescue during some of the levels. And there are 3 arcade machines in this place, and each of them requires a part because they're out of order, and you find these 3 parts scattered amongst the various game levels. And once you have that part, you can then go play the arcade game. There's one karate chopping game. There's one game that's kind of like you're a spaceship inside of like a body, and you're trying to destroy the attacking cells or whatever. But my favorite one, it's like a take on the old Spy Hunter game where you're that spy car and you just race up the top of the screen and you're shooting cars, laying down oil slicks, that sort of thing. It's a takeoff on that, and that was my favorite. I had so much fun with that game. I played it quite a bit. And yeah, you just make your way through the game, destroy all the enemies, face off against Rita in the end, and save the day. So I played this game through fairly quickly. It's got 15 levels, but they're fairly short, so it doesn't take long to make your way through this game. But in each level, you're given usually between 2 or 3 objectives. Usually, um, what are they? Get through the level without losing a life, get through in a certain amount of time, and then collect all the hidden items, sort of thing. So I did okay on my first playthrough, but afterwards I was like, I'm going to play through again and try and knock as many of these things down as I can, sort of thing, right? So it gives you a little more incentive to keep playing the game afterwards. Not that I needed much incentive to keep playing this game, because it is, like I said, it's so much fun and it's so well done. So I highly enjoyed my experience with this game. I was kind of hoping it would be a bit longer. I hope they do another one. There's so many different seasons and teams of Power Rangers they can use. I would not be disappointed if they kind of kept these games going. I think it would be a lot of fun. So, but anyways, if you like that style of game, you don't need to know anything about the Power Rangers. You don't have to even like the Power Rangers. It's just such a good game. If you like that style of game, you will love it. You absolutely love it. So that is that. Last up, another video game. This one is from back in 2019. It was a free download on the PS4 for my PS Plus account. And me and Jimmer just played through it recently and just beat it last weekend, I think. And it is called Team Sonic Racing. We've played a Sonic Racing game before. I think it's Sonic All-Stars Racing. I don't remember it all that well, but I think I liked it better than this one. Basically, the story in this one is that Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and a whole bunch of other people are meet up with this. I forget his species, but his name is Dodonpaw, and he approaches Sonic about him and his friends racing with Dodonpaw and testing out these super awesome race cars as a means of research. Dodonpaw is trying to do, but they get a little bit suspect about him. They're getting very much Eggman vibes from this guy, so they're hesitant to do it. But Sonic is like, well, I love racing, so let's just do it and see what happens. And Dr. Eggman eventually joins the circuit as well, which adds a new element of craziness to it. So you just race through all these different worlds and all the different events that they hold. And as with each race that passes, the kind of story evolves and unfolds until the truth comes out in this seventh. There's 7 worlds. The truth comes out about what Dodonpaw is really trying to do and what Eggman's role is in the whole story, sort of thing. Yeah, that's basically about it. So it's very much like Mario Kart. You're just racing through these cartoonish landscapes with Sonic and all of his friends. And there's about, I want to say there's probably between 10 and 12 events or races in each world, sort of thing. And it's not just straight races. There's events where you have to collect a certain amount of rings in a certain amount of time in order to get the grade to pass the event. Same thing, you have to shoot some of Eggman's egg pawn robots. You have to shoot targets. So it's not just racing. There's some other events that keep the action kind of varied. And there's upgrades you can put on your cars and stuff like that. But overall, I found like the game was just kind of underwhelming. The racing got repetitive, and I wanted to finish it just for the sake of finishing it, but I feel like they could have done a better job with making this game a little more interesting, and maybe making some unlockables or something to keep you interested in it. But worth the play, especially since it was free with PS Plus. I like to play as many Sonic games as I can, because the original Sonic the Hedgehog game was a huge deal for me. I would have been in like grade 9 when I got my Genesis, and that game just came out, and it was the launch game with the system. And I just wanted to get the Genesis for the original NHL hockey game. I wanted it so bad. But when I got the system, my dad got it for me, and I was playing hockey relentlessly, of course. But then when I finally got into Sonic, I was like, this game is fucking awesome. And I just played that game relentlessly as well. So I have a real soft spot in my heart for Sonic. And there's been so many games across the years that they've expanded on this franchise with. Some have been really good, others have been kind of a miss. The ones on the Wii, just because the controls were kind of a miss for me, even though I like the concept of them. So they've had some ups and downs with the Sonic franchise, but mostly it's for me it's been positive. And he's just a really cool character, and it's a really cool franchise. So I'm glad I played the game, but I would have been maybe not so glad if I had actually paid a decent amount of money for this game and not gotten it, for free, basically, right? So take that for what it's worth. Like I said, I think I like Sonic All Stars Racing better than this one, but it was so long ago we played that I kind of forget. But that's just my general vibe. I remember liking that game quite a bit. Um, so yeah, that's my 2 cents on Sonic getting behind the wheels of his racing cars. So anyways, those are the 5 things I've been up to recently. I've already got a good start on my next 5 things. That video should be along very shortly, within the next week or two, I would guess, depending on what kind of weekend I have coming up. But yeah, you can guarantee I will be back, just like Arnold.
Meow.